You know, you already know there's a space that comes after you pray, right? Between the prayer and between the answer. When you've done what you know what to do, you've taken it to God, and now you're just waiting. The thing is, no one really talks about this space because we talk about the prayer, we talk about the faith, but we don't always talk about what it feels like when you've prayed and then the answer doesn't come right away. And the thing about waiting and waiting on God is that you become anxious. That waiting period feels so long, even when it technically hasn't even been that long. Time just seems to move slower. It definitely moves slower when you're waiting on something that you really care about, right? Then it gets quiet, so quiet that it don't even feel like anything is happening. Then you find yourself just sitting there in it by yourself. And honestly, that space can feel uncomfortable and it becomes a bit intimidating, especially the way we live, because we live in a world that requires instant results. We want quick answers and instant answers, and God just doesn't work like that. And then the waiting becomes even harder because it feels like it's inconveniencing you. And honestly, who likes to be inconvenienced? I know I don't. No one likes things taking longer than we plan for them to take, right? We have a timeline. We know when we want the answer or when we need an answer by, and when it's not there, we start feeling like, dang, is God even listening to me? We start taking the quiet, start taking it personal. We start taking it as absence. We just start taking it in ways in which some of us may not even be willing to admit, you know? And especially those prayers that you took directly to God, the ones that you said, no, I'm not gonna talk to my friends about. The ones you're like, I'm not gonna talk to my family about. This is just gonna be between me and God. This is just gonna be a me and God thing. And then here it is days later and I still don't have an answer. And we all know what that silence starts to do to us. It starts making us question things that we feel like we was once sure about, right? We start wondering, did God even hear me? Did I do something wrong? Maybe he answered and I missed it, you know? Like, cause why is this taking so long? And then the thing is, if we're not careful, that's when we start confusing silence with absence. But we have to understand that just because it's quiet does not mean it is not happening. And just because we don't see the movement does not mean that there's not any movement happening. You know, waiting doesn't mean that God isn't working. And we should know by now, honestly, that the silence doesn't mean that God has forgotten about us, even though that's what it seems like. But we have to be reassured. We have to be reassured, even if we have to reassure ourselves. Because to me, what comes along with reassurance is peace, or what feels like peace, right? Is realizing, if you think about it, I know God didn't think about me. I know God didn't forget about me. I know God, I was covered the entire time. Even though I don't know what's happening, even though I don't see what's happening, I know something is genuinely happening. And because I know something is happening, that's movement. There's some type of intentional movement going on, and that's still intention, it's still protection, because I know that there's still movement. And so by the end of this video, I really just want you to know one thing. God is still God. Even when it feels like he has forgotten, he hasn't. It's as simple as that. Even when you don't feel him, even when you don't hear him, he's still doing what he does best, and that's being God. Guiding, Goding, you know, and Guiding. He's still guiding. He's still handling things his way, even though they don't match up to our way. So if you find yourself in between space right now, between the prayer and the answer, I promise you, you're not forgotten. God is still being God, even right here, even right now.